great. Well, this is the first studio visits for 2025. That sounds ominous. Um, wasn't that long ago. It feels that we were celebrating a new millennium. And now we're all the way up to 2025. Anyway, okay, so thank you for coming. I'm not going to show up on the screen at the beginning because I do have it all set up for close-up so you can see what it is that I'm going to be doing with both of these paintings. All right, so today really was all about working on the textured boards. Did you have a question, Paula?
I did, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said something that was interesting to, well, everything you say is interesting, but this one, it was something I was actually thinking about. You said you just said something about the board. You said you sprayed it. What do you mean? Did you spray it with color or did you spray it with the
Oh,
ground?
yes, sorry, yes. It's probably because I've shown this board a few times.
Yeah, it
This
was
has
that one.
acrylic ink, so it's got the coatings, everything's that I'm showing you is coated now. So it has all the prep materials on it. I then put on acrylic ink. Now, acrylic ink is resists uh, alcohol. So, sorry, it resists water. So what happens is when you spray it, water or with alcohol, provided it's dry, if you spray acrylic inks with alcohol, you'll remove the ink. But either spraying it with water or alcohol, you get this really nice bubbly texture. And I think you're seeing it right
Yep,
in here,
yep.
with this lovely bubble effect. So that's what it was. And so I just have these little jars. I save um, different spray bottles. So this one right here, this one just has water in it. And then I've got them handy. And if I feel like spraying something, I can. I'm actually going to show you how I use that to actually fix mistakes too.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Thank you so
good
much.
question. I was going a little quick there since I've showed the thing a few times. I should have slowed down. This one here is a collage. So this one, again, same prep materials, and then on top of it, it does have tissue paper. It has origami paper, and then it has the acrylic inks that are on top, and there's various layers of that. This one I haven't finished doing anything with it, and I've done it a while ago because I kind of liked the way it was. And I didn't really, my original idea was not going to float on this. I just did not, I felt as though I needed to just let this rest and come up with another idea for it. But I just love all the movement in this is just fabulous. I just love the movement, whether you have it above or below. This is supposed to be the deep water with the sun coming through the shallow water. And that just reminds me to say is when you're working on something, don't push it. Okay, I knew that I just needed to not do my original idea, to wait and return to this when I'm going to be very loose and just enough description to make me happy, not to overdo it with something that is, very representational. I like the idea of keeping this one a little bit more of an abstraction. You can see it's an old painting on the back.
Betsy,
Yes,
another interruption.
no trouble.
I love that one you just showed. Where in that is the pastel?
There's none. There's no
Ah,
pastel in it.
just
No,
ink.
I stopped myself. I started putting pastel in. I can see it right up there.
Uh-huh.
And, I just felt like, sometimes I think it's frame of mind. It's like I needed to step away from what my original idea was so that I didn't impose on this painting this underwater scene that really was, pretty representational. And it has such a free flowing abstract feel that I think I only need to add some pastel to just kind of push it over the edge. Now, there is a show that's coming up with the Central Mass Pastel Society, and it is called Pastel Plus. So Some of you, if you're members, you would have gotten the information. If you're not a member, look up that Pastel Society, because they have a show every year, maybe for the past 3 years, that is pastel medium, but it has to be no more than 60% pastel, which is lower than typical pastel shows. Typically, it has to be 80, because what they're trying to do is to see what do people do with pastel as a, well, 60%, it's still a fair amount of pastel on it, but it's really secondary in my eyes to a full pastel. So it's the mixed media end of it, which is why they're calling it Pastel Plus. So if you're interested in doing mixed media with pastel and keeping that pastel at 60%, or was it at least 60% or no? Oh, geez, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, look it up and find out about it. But it's a lot of fun doing these. And that acrylic inks I love. And what I'm going to tell you about acrylic inks, why I prefer them over alcohol inks, is because they resist water. And I have done this before. So if I have a section of a painting that is not working, I can wash it off and not interfere with the underpainting that's underneath. So underneath here, there is an acrylic underpainting. So if there's any section that's not working, I can actually wash it off. The acrylic ink will stay because it resists the water. And so you have that original underpainting. This one here, I cannot do that. And the reason I can't do it is because I was doing this for a demo and I was showing how you could use pastel and alcohol to create an underpainting. So if I took this to the kitchen sink and if I washed off my pastel that's on here, I would also lose some of my underpainting. A ghost image would remain. The full image remains here. The full total underpainting. So if we use this as an example, if I put pastel on, don't like it, go to the kitchen sink, wash it off, it will look like this. Okay, so that's the main reason that I use acrylic ink. And that's solely for the purpose of if I make a mistake, I can fix it easy. No, it's also because I love the colors. The colors in the acrylic inks, you get that lovely intensity. And it's thin, so it doesn't fill the tooth of the board. So for instance, with this one, you can see, I varied it a little. There's areas that are lighter and darker just because of the way I applied the acrylic ink. But if I was to water down acrylic paint to this degree, I would dilute that very vivid, intense color just because I'm adding more water to my acrylic paint, because you don't want to fill the tooth that you have on there. And acrylic paint, because of the plasticity of the ingredients in that medium, it fills the tooth quicker than acrylic inks. So that's my little blurb on acrylic inks. And I know some of you have used them. They're fabulous to work with. A couple of things you can do with acrylic inks is if in fact you put them on and they haven't dried, you can get them off pretty easy. Okay, all you have to do is add just a little bit of alcohol spray and the acrylic ink will come off. If it's dried, it's a different story. You really do have to work on it to get the acrylic inks out of there. So I just wanted to, for today, show you a couple of paintings that I'm working on. I'm at the finishing phases, and they both have a fair amount of texture. And hopefully on camera, you can actually see the level of texture that is in each of them. This one here was done on the Gator foam board. This one here was done on the birch board. It doesn't really affect the outcome of the painting that I've noticed. Somebody who maybe has done far more than I may notice might be able to share a difference, but I have not noticed much of a difference in working on either one of them. Clearly, the board has less give than the gator gator board, but because the gator board is so rigid, it's not like you're working with foam core and there's like a little bit of give to that top surface. So when you're doing these, I'm gonna just give a quick little for people who haven't seen this before. I buy the large jars of it, but you know, the gallon container. But these are some small ones that I can take to class with me. And golden fine pumice gel is one of them that I use. The other one, which I don't use as much, but they come in a lot of different colors. All the colors of the color art spectrum color fix pastel papers, they sell in jars. So I have a few of the black jars because for my nighttime scenes, I can make them very dark. And I can cover a whole board and I get both the color and the pumice texture just from that one jar. But if you're a art spectrum fan and you like their color fix papers, you can get any number of their jars. You know, there as you can see the color maybe a little bit better there. And it's a thick liquid. Most of these you do have to thin them to the consistency that you would like for your texture. The other thing with the texture is I like a rough texture. And actually, I've done things that are even rougher texture than this, but your brush makes a difference. So if you have a brush that is brand new, you're going to get, you know, more even marks. This one you can see it's a little bit, you know, gnarly, not too bad, which means I'm not going to have totally even marks when I brush it on, which is really what I want. I'm not looking for something to be uniform. I'm looking for something to be really fun and a little bit unusual so that I don't have an evenness to it. And if you save your really old ones, which I have, you can get some really crazy sorts of layers just by putting that pumice on with a brush that's not brand new. I suggest if you do it the first time and you're a little hesitant, yeah, do it with a brush that's got you know, a pretty even bristle edge to it. So you're not having to deal with something that's really overtly textured and you're battling the texture. Now, for the purposes of today, I thought it would be interesting to show you how I take care of some areas that aren't working the way I want them to in these two paintings. And what I'm going to do when I send out this video, I'm going to send out a video of a couple other paintings I've done in the past, and one of them shows you how I use textured board, and then I did a reduction technique where I put on the paint and I pulled it off. And then there's another one that I have that goes back a little bit further of a textured board that has a no-tan behind it. And a no-tan's for another day. So that balance of dark and light, and I love no-tans as sketches and under paintings. So what we have here, and I'm going to start with this one here first. This is the one that I've done more recently. This one was, you know, a little bit, you know, several weeks ago. This one I've been working on this week. I readjusted this from the photograph, which is just a sidebar note. And this part over here is something that I'm creating that was not in the photograph. I love this swoop right here and came up. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to create, I had a lot of the grasses here, and then I created this wall that was behind it so that it would take this. I was not happy with the grasses. One of the things you can do with these boards is you get some sort of a bristle brush. And this one right here, you just come in and I can just wipe that right off. Now, if you're doing this, one thing I would suggest highly, which of course I'm not going to be doing right now because I'm talking, is to have an air purifier on or wear a mask because it's going to float all over the place. But you can pick up large areas of just by using a stiff brush and just knocking it off. let's say you do that and it's just not coming off the way you wanted and you really wanted to knock it down even further. So I just have some water here. Remember, this does not have acrylic ink underneath it. So I put water on, I'm taking a chance, whatever I have under there might get lifted up. But no, I wasn't happy with it. If you're not happy with something, you know, just be a little bit bold, okay? You know what? You weren't happy. I was not happy with it. If this goes awry, it just means I have something else I have to fix. That's it. So this is just dipped in water. This is an old watercolor brush. And I'm just gonna come in here and I'm gonna lift off even more. You're probably not gonna be able to see it because what's happening is as I do this, it's going on my brush and then I'm dipping it in here and the little particles of the dust of the pastel. Oh, look what's happening. I am getting some of that color showing up underneath. See some of that dark color? This is like a real slow process when when you're trying to take it off with any sort of medium that water will dissolve. Okay, I got a little bit heavier on here, knocking that down. What I have on the side is paper towel. I am not going to rub it. I'm just going to push it. The reason I'm not rubbing is I don't, I don't want to rub it because I don't want the fibers of my paper to come off on the board because this is textured. You can see the texture right in here. Okay, so it may not be like sandpaper, but it's still got that texture. Ooh, that dark color is coming up nicely. That's what I was hoping, that I'd be able to rescue some of the color that I had underneath. Pull that in and just go back and forth. Get that a little bit wet. Okay, I'm gonna be a little more daring and get this really wet. I don't want it to drip too much. There it goes. Get it really wet and lift. And lift. Okay, look at the way that yellow is starting to show up. A little bit of patience is required when you do this. Whether you're, okay, and I had some really nice yellow in there. Oops, really nice yellow in there. Let's see if I can get that back up again. What I needed is this is on one of those kind of unusual scenes where the light is really coming from this direction, hence the light inside of the boat, the light hitting this, the light hitting this, the shadows coming down. The light that's back here is the light that's traveling behind those trees. So it looks like it's backlit, and it is, but not, it's indirectly backlit. It's not like the light source is behind it. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. This is why you use an old brush. If you took your $10, $15, $20 watercolor brush and did this, you'd be killing the tip. Okay, so save old brushes, ask friends for old brushes. Oh, look at, it's coming up. Just working away. Because it's what I want. This has got light underneath it because light's hitting it. Shadow here. I need light back here. Whereas when I first did this and I was putting, like clearly I had yellow underneath that, but I had gone over it and brought up the shrubs, and in doing so, I got a whole, oh, look at that. I don't know if you can see some of the texture that's, what's happening here is the yellow is showing through and some of the dark that I'd put on top of it is actually still there. So I'm getting this little, very faint texture that's showing up. I'm not going to come over too far with that. Okay, I'm going to just do just a little bit right in here. Yeah, I suppose you could do this with a bristle brush and water too. I just find that these old watercolor brushes work out real. I'm gonna get this right here so that it doesn't go down and whoops. Kick that to the side. If I get anything on here, it's no big deal. I can just fix that afterwards. Beauty of pastel. Okay. Now, I'm gonna stop there because too much water and too much scraping actually is gonna start to dissolve the pumice ground that is on there, okay? Now, if I had put acrylic ink, I'm gonna do this comparison thing. If I'd put acrylic ink down on top of my pumice ground, it would act as a barrier and shield it from the water. Because I didn't do that here, I have to be aware of the fact that I've reached a point where I cannot take off anymore, or I'm gonna start taking off the pumice ground. So just remember that, okay? Another reason to do, it's a good thing I didn't do this with acrylic. I wouldn't be able to show you a comparison. This one over here, you can see the blue, that's some of the acrylic ink, and then there's some violets back there and some oranges in the middle. So I'm gonna let that dry for just a minute. And I'm going to just come in and show you, you know, what we do when you wind up. Okay, so we've got that, we're fixing it. And the texture and the amount of texture is actually controlled that you can see. The amount of texture you can see is controlled by the contrast of value. So if you want the texture to show up, you have to create a wider range of value. If you want the texture to disappear, it's always going to be there. If you want it to disappear, you have values that are very close. So I can see the texture in here, but it's not as obvious when I step away because the values that are in this area, there's the yellows and oranges, there's some very light red violets and some light blues. They're all so close in value that texture is not showing up. I'm going to come in with a little darker color here. So you can see this is where a little bit of a shadow is. I'm just going to pick up the pastel that I dropped. And I'm just going to double check my color. And this one you can see is going to be a lot darker. I'm just going to test it up there. Yes, it is the same color. Ooh. Oh yeah, that's dried pretty quickly. Good. Well, I'm just going to get that little mark right there. Okay. So I'm just going to drag a little bit down. As I drag, you should be able to see some of that texture showing up. And what happens when you do this is you're just creating a contrast of this darker color on top of the lighter color so we can see it. Say I don't want the texture to show up, I just put it on a little thicker up here and I can fill it in. So that, I think what I'm going to do is, this is all the same value here, but I wanted to get a little bit of this blue up in this tree too. So I'm just going to put that a little bit on this side. Can't avoid that shadow, sorry about that. Okay, so I like the way that looks. I'm going to bring this over. Yeah, that's dried very nicely. Remember, the sun's coming this way. This has got to be light. So if I go by what I have over here, I've got these lovely oranges, and I'm going to put some of these colors in here right now. And you should be able to see the texture showing up on that. It's just a drag. Gonna bring it all the way down. Bring a little bit of this orange over here since I'm putting it there. Just add a lot. I want to make sure not go too close to that blue, because that blue and the orange could wind up really creating a kind of a yucky neutral color. Now, when you do this, I'm not trying to fill in that texture. So as I drag this over it, it's just hitting the tops of what is there, which is exactly what I want. I don't want let's put a little bit there. I don't want to fill it in. I want some of that yellow. Remember I had that yellow, I want that to show through, but I do need to go just a little bit lighter. I don't want to go too light towards this edge. I'm gonna go a little bit lighter right here. And still working with that same idea of darker value to lighter value. I'm just dragging it down. I want a little bit of that sun to be hitting the edge here. How do you get a straight line on this stuff? Oh boy, I'll tell you. You have to remember that this is going to look like a complete line from a distance because our eye is going to do that. It's going to just that the little edges that are not filled in, no big deal. Because our eye is going to read that. Let me put a little right here. Trying to avoid this shadow. Here, let me go like this. Gonna bring this up a little bit. Drag it down. Okay, that's getting pretty full of pastel, so it's not going to take much more. I'm just going to get a little bit here. I'm going to try to do this so that the shadow doesn't fall. Bring that over, bring that over. You can usually tell when the surface starts to fill, because what happens is you get more of like a drag. You start to feel as if that lovely texture is getting, let's see, there's probably an area on here where I could show you. It gets kind of like gloppy, like up in here. There's a couple of areas that I need to fix because I had too much pastel. And before I would take something off, what I would do is I've got to get a little bit more light that's on this edge here. So I've got this lighter green and I would drag it. Okay, well, I guess it had enough texture there. And see, I'm not trying to like leaf, branches, all this jazz. This is the beauty. You want to loosen up your paint on this stuff. Yes, you can make nice clean edges, hard edges, something where you've got a very distinct edge. But in reality, when you get up close, you can see that it is actually uneven because you're working on this board. So it's almost like an illusion. You're just, okay, let's get a mark right there. Now to just fill that in. Okay, I'm gonna leave this alone for now. The reason why is I know I'm gonna be putting shrubs in there, but I want to deal with this here. And in dealing with this is I feel as if there's woods back here. And, there was also a road and there was other stuff and I got rid of the road and, I've just decided instead of this really gnarly sort of vegetation that was growing here on top of the trees, I really gave it more of a form. So this is one of these instances which is really great with this sort of surfaces. You can come in with a darker color over a lighter color. Because what happens is you're only hitting the edge. Let me show you on this blue one right here. Because this one, I don't even like my original idea that I started with, so I'm just gonna go over it. I'm just gonna show you here. Okay, you can, I don't know if you can even see if there's any, just gonna lean it up so it doesn't, I don't know if you can even see that there's texture in here, but what's gonna happen as soon as I put this dark color in here, you can see how much texture there is. And that there is where you say, okay, I want some of this. I'm kind of sticking with the form that I have there. You could take and you could rub it in. Okay, now rub it in. And what happens is I'm going to do it on this side. Looks like the texture has disappeared and I no longer have texture. All I have to do, dark color, all I have to do is come in with a lighter color. And that texture shows up again. I come in with an even lighter color on top of that. And then the texture appears even more so. The higher that contrast, let's put a little bit in here. Here it's going to kind of like blend a little bit. I want that to disappear, but I don't want it to, I don't want to blend it. This is a very dark blue. I'm gonna just come in and I'm gonna put dark blue in here. And the more dark blue I put in there, the less that texture shows. I want to kick it back up again. I come in with a light color and I wind up bringing that texture back up again. So that's how you control how much texture there is, not by getting rid of the texture, but by changing the value range. So back here, it was really totally infused with light. And, I knew it was going to be a problem area from the point I started with. And to tell you the truth, this has been a problem area the whole painting. So anyway, my idea is to come in here and to create the feeling as if there are dark areas between trees. So I'm introducing one of the colors that I have in here, which is a very dark red violet. And I'm just going to create edges next to where the trunks of some of these trees are so that the trunks stand out. So it's really like what I'm doing is I'm carving around, okay, I have to make sure, look at there, I've got two of them that look like they're the same. So I'm gonna just break that guy up a bit, bring it through. Make it look as though it's like a very wooded area in there. And this is, I said, if we were doing that on regular paper, you'd probably be blending and potentially creating a very muted, almost like muddy color. But because this is just going, remember what I just showed you, it's just going on the top ridges, it's actually not interfering with the pastel that's underneath, interfering in terms of merging with it, it's just riding over the top of it. I'm going to come down, I'm going to bring that through. And because I have it over here, I'm going to have some areas over here where I've got that too. Same in here. I feel like I want to have a little bit more contrast. And up close, I can see the lines all over the place. I'm not really sure you can. But do you see how that just created that more of a woodsy feel back there? I'm going to take that, I don't think I'm going to take that blue I have because that blue looked really nice over there, but it was a little too blue. This is these are like little tiny pieces, but this is a dark blue violet. And again, it's a little darker than the last one, but very easily. And I can still see the yellow underneath it because the yellow is part of the underpainting. Some of it might have been pastel. And it is just, let's be a little bit more random over here. There's this really great texture that's showing up there. It almost, ooh, you know what? Some of these look like they would wind up being limbs. I'm just going to come in here and make that a little bit darker through here. Just slide it. Okay, I am doing this super, super softly. This is about as soft as I'm doing it. Whoops. But it's a pretty dark color, but I'm putting it on really softly. I am not pressing down hard, okay? Even hard, that other color showed up. So I'm getting a little bit more form because I'm trying to create that, dark and light. Put this in here, come through here. I like the way that's looking better. I'm going to get a little variation, put a little bit darker running through here. It used a blue back here. I'm going to just come in with the blue. I'm just going to go sideways. I don't want a line. Okay. So if I use the side of my stick and I drag it over, means I'm not necessarily getting a line, I'm getting an uneven collection of light that's hitting on this. Wow, that guy. A little bit of light in there. I'm gonna just make a couple of odd little marks through here. Now this blue here, I also wanted this blue to go on the top of this, so I'm just gonna come through, and again, I'm holding it on its side just to get a little bit of a straight line here. Because I used that blue there, I'm gonna use a little bit of the blue right here. A little bit right here. And that blue is gonna be in the inside of that boat right there. Right along this edge right here. This is a little bit more in the shadows, so okay. And I want those undercolors to show through. So I'm just doing a real tap, really, really light. Again, I like the shape of this better down here. Okay, so let's see. What do I have here? I think I'm just gonna take and just drag a little of that blue here, just a tiny touch.
Jesse, I don't want to interrupt your mojo because you're really going to town there. But I remember when you first doing this painting and how much you hated that upper right-hand corner. And it's just fabulous now.
But is it too funny? From the very beginning, I started this for people aren't, if I didn't say so. I started this as a demo, as an underpainting with the sketches and everything that I do before I paint. And this area was driving me crazy. It drove me crazy in the photograph too. Here's the photograph. Okay, it's just this big blob. A huge blob of greens, yellow greens.
It's beautiful. Just,
Oh, thank you.
I'm in awe.
But it is really funny. I predicted my own headache. Was this end back here. So I feel like I've created more depth there just by tagging a little bit of light that might be hitting some of those tree trunks. And by getting a little bit of depth in there where the trees are back there. But you know what? I don't really know if I'm going to do much to this. I don't need to describe everything. To me, it kind of feels like the shrubs. I'm just going to come in, not the shrubs, the grasses. I'm just going to come in with a couple of marks of an intermediate green. And I think I'm going to leave that there like just like that. This is a reflection of this, but because this has changed so many times up here, this reflection down here, I might have to, it's water. I might have to adjust that, because it really would be reflecting from here. It would be reflecting this area. And it is some of this, but I did change it around a little bit. Let's just pull down a little bit. Ooh, let's get this really nice orange right there. Oh, that's a gorgeous orange. I'm just going to kick up some of these colors over here a little bit. And then I have a little bit of that blue back there, but I'll play around with that later. In here, I really liked that light that was coming through. It was almost like this, it was this bit of a diagonal curve, lights coming in opposite, whether you're looking this way or that way, the light's still coming from this direction. I really like that. Let's try to get this a little bit a harder edge right here. Going back to that bluish one, bluish violet I had, and I'm just gonna swoop it right there. Come out. So what happens is there's not really a line there. It is the edge of one shape next to the edge of another shape. Same thing's gonna happen in here. Okay, I'm not doing a line, I'm just doing an edge. So I'm getting the edge of the way that, I'm just gonna do little random ones along there, not a lot. And this guy's not on a flat surface, so I don't really want the bottom. Get a little bit, now I'm just dragging down to get that texture. So that boat starts to stand out a little bit more. When you're, I'm just gonna go back to one of the phrases I said, and it's not a line you do. It is, think of it as the edge of one object next to the edge of another object. Okay, in this case, the object is the top of the wall and the beach and the wall. So that's where this comes in. It's not drawing that line, it's just I need this to be distinct from that, so I get that really nice curve. And value here is slightly closer, it still shows up, but it really shows up there. And we're gonna do the same thing up here, a little hard. This silly old shadow, just good, let's get that little right in there, little bit of line. Oh, I'm really happy with that. Just gonna go in, give a little definition to the edges, just where maybe the light wouldn't be hitting. And not do too much there.
Excuse me, Betsy,
Yes,
you,
yes,
you said it's not a line. It's the value of one edge next to the value of another edge. Did I get that right?
correct. You
Okay,
know what? If you think like that, it stops you from drawing that line and painting the line. What you're
Yeah.
doing, you're saying dark area, dark area, dark area. Middle dark, light. Okay, if you're
Yep.
thinking of this. Now, over here, when I did the edge of that boat, yes, it was a line that I drew because it's a very thin area. Actually, I probably could have gotten away with not even doing it, but I just did it with the side of my pastel stick and kept it uneven. And I'm gonna get a little bit of light right there. A little bit of light right there. So I'm still, but I'm thinking that's the edge of the, okay, I'm a boater and I can't think of the names. The edge of the boat and the side of the boat. So I'm painting that edge on the top and it's next to the side. So I have to make sure, even though remember, this is a white boat, but that side has some light in it, but it's also in shadow. So the light is on the inside of this boat. Okay, you just haven't done anything to this guy over here. Well, I'm not gonna take anything. I'm gonna leave him alone for now. I gotta resolve this. This yellow's like just jumping off. I'm gonna leave it alone. I may tone it down or I may bring a bright yellow out here. Haven't decided which. The reason that's standing out so much is because it is the most vivid color in the painting and it's standing alone, even though it's underneath a couple of spots. There's no other spot where it's really standing out to that degree. And I could tone it down by putting other colors on top or knocking some of that off. If I knock it off, oh geez, if I knock it off, it might just do it. Knock it off. This is a dry brush. This is the bristle. Some of the colors that are underneath might show through. Oh, maybe that'll do it. Maybe that'll. Okay, I just said I wasn't going to do any more on that one, so I'm going to leave that. Oh, that might help. Okay, this one over here is really basically done. But I'm feeling like it's just like a little like, oh, ho hum. As we all know, marshes are not something that I paint, but this one was really fun because of the texture and just hitting parts of these areas with dark colors and then light colors. So it gave the impression of the vegetation at the side. What I'm feeling like it needs, and these are similar palettes that I used, and that's actually also kind of fun, is if you have a palette that you use for one painting, you then go and you try it on another one. So what I'm going to do, looks so this got a little cockeyed. I'm just going to go straight like this. I'm going to add some areas that are a little bit dark. So this is another occasion where you can take and you can drag a, oh geez, I'll put my hand down low like this and I'm just going to drag it. Okay, a really light drag. It's going to pick up some of the texture. It's a little different than when we make those marks when we're using a smooth sheet of paper. When we're doing this, we're paying attention to where the texture is and how we can hit it and create. I really like that color here. That's the problem. Look at, I even signed it. I thought I was done. Guess I can go over my signature that's right there. Make this area just a little bit darker and I can still leave that in there. And of course, thinking of where the light would be, sun is, low in the sky, light's coming from all around, but stronger light back there. I don't want to use the same color in the back, but I'm just going to take and grab a little bit of that texture. And as I grab the texture with these really soft marks, all those, I can see the brush strokes here. I can see the brush strokes on a real angle. So I'm gonna take, boy, and I'm just gonna drag, oh no. What if I can do this with my other hand? Hang on a second, let me go over here. I want you to be able to see this. I am just I'm gonna go this way. I'm dragging it. And when I drag it, it picks up the texture. And when it picks up that texture, it looks like the reeds of the marsh because they're going in that direction. Now, if the texture wasn't in the right direction, I clearly would be doing something a little bit different. Down here, the texture is all over the place. So I'm going to be a little bit more random in my strokes. And again, get a little bit back here. Back here, I don't want a lot of texture showing back here because that's off in the distance. So they're just a very light stroke. A lot of that is that's the ink that's there. This is a lot of ink with just a little bit of pastel grabbed over it. And this is a variety of both ink and pastel. And then I think just add a little bit of hit of the light. I've got that same light color I had here. Really want that to be lighter here. Okay. This is what happens when you have two paintings on the easel at once. I distracted myself. I usually don't, for that reason alone, I go to the other one. But maybe that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that. Let's get some light. Just drag it over. I can see the texture. It's going like this, so I'm just dragging it over it. Don't want to do too much. This is really looking nice down here, but I'm going to just get a little bit light, and I'm just going to drag it around in a couple of spots. And then I'm going to come in with this blue. I want the colors to show through. I'm leaving all that yellow. It's a marsh, I don't need to have the, oh, I might put like a little bit right in here, because you know how that marsh, it sneaks right around. Just sneak it right in there. Let's get that nice, real light. And I'll define that guy a little bit by breaking them up. I'm gonna go in front on the other side again now. Okay, so let's straighten this guy up a little bit. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I wanted to mention how the value shifts is what controls how much texture shows up. So you want to remember the more contrast there is. There's a yellow behind there. There's a dark on top of it. So I can really see the texture right here. These guys are all about the same value with the exception of a little bit of the blue coming down. Not seeing a lot of texture, but it's there because if you get up close and look, you can see it, but from a distance, you can't. Okay, I also wanted to show how edges, they just appear naturally soft or lost edges because, and that's really noticeable in here. There's a lot of lost edges in this. I came up with a little bit more of a found or hard edge by taking that dark and adding the dark in here, which created like an optical blending of that edge, so you can see it working all along there. But through here, it's all a lot of lost edges. So two things, the takeaways of this really are, you want to loosen up, paint on these kind of boards, because it is more difficult to control shapes. Doesn't mean you can't. I was able to get a boat in here with very distinct edges on a visual sense up close. They're not really that distinct, but a good way what I've said when I teach these is that you want to see what this painting looks like from 6 or 8 feet away. Because if you're standing on top of your painting the whole time, what happens is you see all the textures, you see all the uneven edges, and then there's a ton of uneven edges in here. I step away, they merge, okay? So, you know, anytime you're working with these, don't get overly frustrated. Step away from it. Let's see what it looks like from a distance before you make up your mind whether or not you're going to go to the sink and wash it off. And don't waste the boards. You don't like the painting. I mean, this painting that I started here, I mean, using it as an example worked out fine, but I'm never going to do this painting that's on here. I'll wash this off. This will stay because this was acrylic ink. So this won't wash off, but I'll wash this off and I can just coat this with a color. I may acrylic ink. I could then come in with pumice ground and cover it with the pumice ground. I have not found a pumice ground yet that I think is what is truly transparent. It does leave a slight cloudy look, which, you know, is not that really that much of a big deal. This one here, no need to, oh, wait a second, did I? No. No need to add any, oh no, it does look as though I added. I can't tell whether I added pumice on top. I'll do it both ways. Sometimes the pumice goes on first, and then I put the acrylic on, and then other times I'll put the acrylic on and then the pumice. If you don't want to lose your pumice, I mean your acrylic ink, you know, it'll stay on there with water, but if you want to be extra careful, you put the pumice ground over the top of it too.
Excuse me, Betsy, it's Deborah.
Yes.
This is beautiful. How did you get your, what strokes did you use for the tree?
The tree, believe it or not, you know what I'll do when I send out
The video?
the video, I'll do some close-up shots. That is it's just all capturing the texture.
Okay.
Okay, and it's all that contrast of, you know, a darker area next to a lighter area. The actual tree trunks, yes, I did do more, you know, more specific edging. So I got the yellow right up to the edge, you know, that carving out technique I've mentioned before, you know, getting in there and carving it out. But like, that's an uneven edge right in there. They're not, you know, and what I could do also is in here. I'm just gonna put a little, this is a bluish green that I've used elsewhere. I could come in. I could come up higher. And what happens is that base of that tree doesn't stand out quite so much because it's not against solely orange. It's against the other one. It's against the bluish green. Take the side of my finger and the edge of that comes back up again. So if you're
Thank you.
if you're someone who really wants the detail of something, I showed you how you can get in and you can rub the pastel in. As soon as you put another coat on of pastel or another layer of pastel, the texture comes back up again. You don't lose that texture until you filled it too much. And then if you
Right.
filled it too much, you're not going to be able to get another layer of pastel on there anyway. So one way or another.
So what, what did you work on here? The board with the,
This
is
is
with the
the
acrylic-
birch board.
uh-huh.
Okay, that was the thin panel. And then this one here is the gator foam board
Right.
with the hard edge, hard outside. That's what the two of these were.
Betsy, I thought
Very
I
nice,
heard you
thank you.
say-
Pardon me?
I thought I heard you say something about you prepared or coated both sides of the board.
Yeah, yeah, both sides of the board. Oh, this one I didn't. And 9 by 12, sometimes I don't. This one I did because I was putting a lot on the back of it,
So
on the
is it
front of
just
it, I
with,
should say. But yeah, let me see if,
was it just with the gesso?
yes, just with the gesso. The back's just with the gesso. The gesso
Okay.
goes on the front and goes on the back. And then, whichever side, what I usually do is I look at my corners. I say, this is the birch. This had nicer corners on it, so that became my front. Now you can see with this one, which I did not do today, that's got gesso that's thrown on there, Jackson Pollock style, and then I use, plastic knives to
Nice.
scrape through it. Palette knives, any number of things. No, I don't know what I'm doing with that one either. Sometimes just for fun, I make the boards. I'll figure out what I will do with it later on.
Betsy, it's Deborah again. What's the purpose, and I know you explained it, of coating the back as well?
Oh, well, you don't actually, with these you don't have to wear it quite as much. But let's say if I think I have one here that, oh, here's an old one of my first ones that I was just playing around with. Gator foam, not gator foam. Gator foam is rigid. This is foam core. So this is bendable.
Oh,
Did not coat the back. This is a small one, but even on the small one, you can see the way there's a slight bow to it.
yes.
See it a little bit better on that side. If
Mhm.
you put gesso on the back, it counters all the weight of everything you're putting
I see,
on the
okay,
front.
thank you.
Like I said, with the boards, I just do it by habit because I just don't want to be trying to do it afterwards if there's any sort of bowing that happens. And I have not had, and I've done these as large as the largest one I did recently was 24 by 24, and that remained perfectly, perfectly flat. It did not bow at all. Any other questions?
Thank you, Betsy, that was great.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'll make sure and put the materials down that I've used when I send out the video. And I'll take some close-ups so you can see what all that texture, especially right
texture,
in here,
okay.
you can see.
Betsy, it's
Yeah.
Ramona. I did have one
Ramona.
question. If you go to frame one of these,
Yep,
do you have to use a special spacer to account for the texture on the board?
that's a really good question. If it has a lot of texture, yes, I use a spacer. Because the idea of doing that passe partout where the pastel is up against the glass is that there is no air pockets. You've created air pockets by working on this. Well, let's take this guy, for example. Well, I don't know how much you can see. This is a totally uneven surface in here. I've got like a ridge that's standing up right there. I've got a bump that's right there. That I would not. This one in particular, this one you can really see well, I don't know if the video really picks it up, but you can see these are all ridges. If I put a piece of glass on this, right up against it, there's any pressure at all, there's going to be pockets where the glass is touching here, the glass is not touching here, and then it's touching here. Pressure point on there could break it. So I tend to judge whether I'd use that passe partout method of the glass right on it by how textured the surface is. And if I'm going to have ridges, I absolutely do not. I don't want the glass to break. Very good question. I hadn't thought about talking about that. Any other questions?
Betsy, it's Lori again.
Hi, Lori.
Hi. I love the way that top right corner worked out. I
Oh.
missed your intro or the demo or whatever where it was just giving you a hard time. But the use of texture really can be used to solve difficult things like that. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
I love the way it came out. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there are absolutely no, I mean, to me, I look at that, and it feels like the trees are off into the forest, you know, what else is in there, who. It's just the impressions of something that's back there, and that's all just because of the dark color that I ran over that yellow that was underneath it. And the yellow is still there. That is the fun thing about this type of surfaces. Whatever colors, you know how when you put just so many layers of pastel, even if you're scumbling, there's a point at which some of those colors may actually disappear or merge together.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, you can overwork this too and fill everything in and lose your colors. But the reality of it is with light strokes on top, and it is only picking up that, it's like doing a gravestone rubbing. It's only picking up that top edge. It's not to that bottom edge, which is why you can do a dark over a light and not make a big mess up of it.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to be doing the paint along in 2 weeks from today, and it is going to be on dark paper. And it will probably be a nighttime scene. The last one I did was 2 years ago, and I believe that was a nighttime, well, I know it was a nighttime scene of a British stoop with the flowers and the lights. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing a small traffic scene, not a big busy one. So I have to just go through photographs, but you'll be getting a notice about that before too long. And I think that is it. And there are, I am running it, the coaching, it does start on Saturday. So if anyone does decide that they want to do the coaching for, you know, between now and April, get in touch. There is still time to sign up, because we have our first session on Saturday morning. And I think that is it. And don't forget, check out Central Mass Pastel Society and look up their Pastel Plus exhibit that's coming up. The images have to be in, I think it's in another month. It's in a couple weeks. It's not like, you know, next week or anything like that. But check it out. Really fun for working pastels with various mediums. Okay. Well,
Alright.
thank you, everyone.